Welcome to today's Social System Mapping Deep Dive session for November 15th, 2021. Your hosts today, as usual, are me, Christine Capper, co-founder of sumApp and Greater Than the Sum, and Kara Martiner, who is a big help to me in lots of ways and is our producer here for our sessions today. I'm just going to whip through this. I think most of you are familiar faces and have seen these sessions and introductions to them frequently, and just know that everything I whip through in the next minute, just a few slides, Kara will follow up with. She's probably putting links to in the chat right now, and if she's not, she will follow up with all the links that we share today, as well as a recording of the session in a follow-up email within the next 24 hours. So you'll get more. You'll get a repeat of all this. We have lots of ways of learning about social system mapping. Today, we're going to ask you to be on our map. You don't have to be, but that is one of the best ways to learn about social system mapping. And we also have a Slack team and a knowledge base. We have a lot of recordings of recent sessions. And if you get stuck or confused, I do office hours on Thursdays from 4 to 4:30 Central every week. And so unless I've canceled, which I do once in a while, but generally I'm here, and anyone is invited to just hop on into my Zoom room and just bounce questions off me or whatever it is you need if you're stuck on something. So I'm here in that way. Okay, so I hope my mic is not picking up. It sounds like there's a big helicopter flying overhead, but no, mic is good. For today's agenda, we're going to do welcome and introductions. We're going to share some links to enable you to be on our map if you are interested and to engage with our map, which we're going to walk through today. Then I'm going to walk you through some thinking that we've been doing recently, how that thinking has impacted our map, and then how the recent changes that we've made to the map. Because I was interested in talking about it with you, and because I think it's whatever we go through with our map in terms of engaging people with it, just teaches me more about what other people are experiencing, and I think that will go vice versa, and it feels relevant to everyone. So I'll walk you through some changes. We'll do a quick Q&A, or not a quick, we'll just have time for Q&A. And for those of you who are new to how we do this, we have sort of a formal session. Our intention is to fill an hour. So that's the formal session, but we always have I always stick around, and whoever else wants to will stick around for an extra half an hour for it can be more Q&A, it can be, take it in a different direction. It can be just whatever, we'll just have an informal discussion. And sometimes that just means there's some new members of our community that wanted to get known better and to get connected a little more, and we just chat and learn more about them. So it can be any of those kinds of things. But at the top of the hour, we will pause and let anybody who needs to leave at that point have a goodbye, and then we will stick around. Okay, so for our chat intros today, so we'll ask you to put this in the chat rather than voice it or have breakouts. This is mostly a sort of a presentation and then Q&A kind of a format. But so in our chat intro, if you could put your name, your pronoun, your location, and a network that you're involved in, that you're supporting as a consultant or a mapper or as a staff person, or that you're active in or interested in generating, any of those. So if you could put those introductions to yourself into the chat, that would be great. And that helicopter is noisy. Is really, you can't hear it? No? A little teeny bit? You're muted, Kara, so.
It's not too bad. Just briefly when you're speaking, you can hear a little hum.
Okay. So we have Donut Economics and the Just Economy Institute and mapping anchor gardens in Anchorage. Derek does a lot of work with youth and education. Mary Roscoe, nature movement and networks, social system mapping. Jeff Peastrack in Ithaca, mapping cooperative food systems in New York State. Jennifer is in Minneapolis, where I am. Seeds to harvest, interesting. Jim showed up. Okay. So we've got people from, so far, it looks like all over the United States, but not all over the world. Sometimes we have people from all over the world, which is really fun. Christine Corcoran in Boise, Idaho with Spark. Cool. Okay, next question is, this is related to our network weaving. I'm really curious how you heard about this session or this community practice, and if it was years ago, or if you remember originally how you came across our work. This is both good for me and Kara to know in our communications, but it's also relevant for us to see how our networks bring us together. So if you can remember, Derek can't remember. Maybe it was from HSD, anyway, I don't remember. Lisa Negstad, from June Holly's class. Mary Roscoe, it was Odin did a Network Weavers monthly thing for a couple months, and I'm pretty sure I remember that being where I met you. It was a long time ago, like 2013 or 14. From Narayan. That's interesting, Jonathan. I didn't know that. Oh, and I did know Mauricio was who connected you up, Casey, your organization. Yeah, Derek, that human systems dynamics. Brian doesn't remember. Through Twitter. I think, Jeff, it was from Aldo Demore. Am I right?
Oh, I think I knew about sumApp before Aldo, but Aldo is definitely somebody who's shown me what it can do. Yeah.
Okay, great. Because I remember Aldo talking to me about you. Jim Best, I think it was in Network Weavers. I remember a comment from you and me noticing that and remembering your name. Okay, so through Each Island Institute. Oh, okay.
Earth Island.
Yeah. So that's great. Thanks for that. Now this is another, so if you, so the next question is there a social system map that you've been involved in either creating or being part of or generating engagement in? Like, do you have some experience in working in and on a social system map? And if the answer is yes, what's been the biggest challenge that you've seen related to generating engagement with that map? Either as a member of the map saying, I don't know what to do with this thing, or as someone who made a map saying, why aren't people more excited about it? Or whatever. What's the biggest challenge you've seen so far in your experience? And if you haven't been part of a map in that way, that's fine. Although, Brian, I would say you're getting a lot of observing of our map and community and its dramas. So
on the outside.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Okay, well, I'm gonna so many challenges is why can't we network like we used to face and one-on-one? Well, that's a good, we'll touch on that. Right. Yep. Leveraging the map, people understanding the value of the map are among the things that we're going to touch on today. Those are the things that, from my experience, talking with network mappers or social system mappers every week, sometimes many days a week, I feel qualified to say that's the biggest challenge that most of us face, and that's sort of the leading edge of of this work for all of us. So before we go into the map and I go into a demo, I want to invite everyone who is not on the map to put yourself on the map. Kara's going to put a link into the chat right now. In that chat, if you click on that link, it will open up a form. You put in your email and your email address, and it will send you an email to invite you onto the map. So if you click on that, put in your email, go to your inbox, find the email and then click on that. That will open up your social system mapping, your sumApp. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. It will open up. Let me go to my own. And if you are on the map but have not updated it recently, we would like to invite you. So I'm just going to give you a few minutes to do this. And the thing that I would ask you to do to prioritize right now is putting your connections on the map. So I'm going to share my screen again. And Kara, could you go ahead and put in the opt-in form? So, no, I'm sorry, I did it backwards. If you're on the map, okay, the first link Kara put up is for if you're not on the map yet. The second one is a just abbreviated process, a little quicker process to just send you your link. Sorry to be confusing. And if you don't get in there right now, don't panic. You will be invited again many places. And but I was just wanting to show for today, since we're sort of sharing this update of the map, I wanted you to feel like you can put yourself on there. So you can see yourself on the map. Am I sharing my screen? I am, right? Yep, okay. So you'll see this, if it's your first time, you'll see this. And there's a profile here that asks a lot of questions. My suggestion today would be to come back to these later, but to go for today, to focus on the connections. So here's where you can see now I'm acquainted with Christine now. Because we've spoken to each other.
Good.
It's not a strong connection, but I do actually remember people when I do this. This is actually, so here's one thing to note. For me now, making connections in sumApp is one of the ways that I sort of cement people in my mind, and one of the ways that I remember, like I have a visual, now I have a visual, like, yeah, I know I talked to that person. So do that if you are willing and able at the moment. If you're not, that's fine. And before I go into the next piece, I'm just going to pause and see, has everybody, are we generally adequately into your access to sumApp that I can move forward, or is, okay. Okay, thank you for the thumbs. Okay, so hang on a second. Man, that helicopter, you know, it's reminding me, this is what it sounded like in the days, in the first month after of the George Floyd uprising, because I live a mile from George Floyd Square, and there were always these big helicopters circling over and over and over, and they were really close and they were really loud and they would go on all night long. And so it's just because they're persisting, which is not a big deal, except that it's bringing that up for me. Okay, so, which is mildly distracting. So there's a couple things that I wanted to share with you today. And one is that one of the things we've learned over time, and you have all just sort of, those of you who put stuff in the chat about your challenges, sort of reiterated this, is that we've learned that a social system map is really valuable and useful to people who already have a vision of complexity and the power of networks, and who are comfortable jumping into things that are messy. So for instance, if we just look at this thing right here, there are some of us who go, oh, I get that, that's really cool, and are able to jump in. For most people, they'll just look at that and say, ooh, ick, what is that? It's messy, I don't know what to do with it, etc. And so we've been exploring for the past couple years, how do we help people learn how to make use of it and get value out of it? And those, from that, we have now monthly sessions on sense making, where we just dig into how do we think about, like we start with thinking about complexity, not what do we do with the map, and then we start finding ways to apply those complexity frameworks and models to so thanks, Jonathan, to a social system map. So those are our sense making sessions. But one of the things in thinking this through a lot that I've realized is that a map is great for people who feel comfortable in the network, who understand the network, and who are comfortable with complexity. But for people who are just getting to know a network, who are just entering into it, it's not so great. It's not very helpful. And they don't know what to do with it. And like, as Cindy said, people will say, why can't we just network face-to-face? And so the first thing is you should continue to network face-to-face. You should, a map is not a replacement for interpersonal, in-person engagement of any, it's not a replacement for that. And so when people think it is, or that it will take care of all their connection problems, it won't. It's to support that and help that and enhance that, and to make it not bound in one time and place. And so, I've been thinking about that a lot. So for instance, in the ReAmp network, Sarah Shanahan, who probably most of you have at least seen present something or know pretty well, their network, the ReAmp network, has a social system map. And Sarah is the staff person for the ReAmp network, and she's the network coordinator. And she actually, for every new network member, she has an orientation. She walks them through the website and the groups part of the website, and she walks them through the map and how they can use the map, and helps them understand, walks them through doing some searches on the map based on their needs and their interests. And she finds that very helpful. But so in some situations, there are staff who can do that, and that's ideal. But there are other situations where there just isn't that bandwidth. It's not a funded network. It's very grassroots or whatever, and we don't have the capacity to have somebody handhold everybody and walk through it. So I've been really sort of struggling with, and that's a challenge in our network. So I've been struggling with, how do we create a process where we have, we've had this map for about 1.5 years now, and we've had a Slack channel for 4 or 5 years. And the Slack channel is great for if people have quick questions. It's not really great for helping people get to understand how the network fits together, who they can reach out to. It's not great for making connections. The map is really great for people who want to dig deep and find one another, but that's not doing it either. So one of the things that I realized was that we have like this, if you think of if you're familiar with the Casey, I'm gonna stop sharing for a minute, sorry. The Stacy matrix, or the HSD landscape diagram, where you have stability at the bottom right corner and chaos at the bottom left corner, chaos at the upper right corner. Sorry, I'm dyslexic. I was thinking, okay, so people who are happy up here in the emergent space are happy with the map, but there's no stable pathway into our network. There isn't a way for people to say, okay, what does this network do? So why would I even, if I don't have a face-to-face interaction with somebody, what am I interacting with? There's nothing here, And so I realized, okay, they need to have a clearer sense of what social system mapping is, what it is, the vision of the network, and then what's going on in the network, like who's here, who's doing what. So since we're a global network and we don't meet in person, and there is a lot going on asynchronously, but people don't necessarily see that. Like they come to a Monday morning session, but they don't know how to get further in. They don't know what's going on. So what I started to experiment with was, I thought, okay, we need to have more. So we need to write a vision. We did that. And then I realized it needs to, look halfway nice. And I put it in this, I found a tool called Walling, which everybody can make pages and add to. So there's a lot of technical stuff I'm not going to go into there. But so now we have, this still doesn't solve all the problems because not everybody's going to look at this stuff, but I'm just pointing it out. We have links to this.
Please share your screen again really quick.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So so we have links to these things that I created, and in the map, we actually have this, wait, where'd it go? Okay. Cool little light box thing going on where we can just within the map. So you're in the map and then you can click on these links and pop open this light box and you can see, okay, what's the vision for mapping? And then what's the vision for the community of practice? Why do we even meet and have these conversations, and what else is going on? So, and then this is the what else is going on piece, which is very much in draft form and very much preliminary, but this is just sort of me sort of starting to fill this in with what I know. And then, so those aren't huge changes, and I'm sure lots of people will say that's not enough because nobody will click on those links. And the fact is that's true. So that is why, I mean, if there is no personal engagement, so we do need to have personal engagement as well to help people see what's there and to help them, to be able to say, if you need more, it's here, it's here, it's here. Sort of more of an informal orientation like Sarah does for a living. So that's one thing. That's a little teeny small thing, but it feels to me like it actually has the potential to be kind of significant and helpful because our community has been very fuzzy to most people who've approached it. And then so that's one piece that I wanted to share. And then the other thing I wanted to just point out or talk about is, so my vision for this community all along was that it would be, an experiment in emergence, an experiment in self-organizing. I've been interested in self-organizing systems for nearly 20 years, 15, 16 years. And I've always been trying to figure out how to energize them in different contexts, and mapping became part of how to energize them. But it also, in my vision for social system mapping, we would be learning how to do that together. We wouldn't just be learning how to make maps, but we would be learning how to become a self-organizing system together. And if you were to, about 6 months ago, ask me, how's that going? I would say not so well. Everything is pretty much, I generate everything. I present most things. People call me if they want something. I'm the pathway in, and no, we don't have a whole lot of self-organizing. So roughly 6 months ago, for about a year, I've been trying to figure out how to change that. And roughly 6 months ago, I sort of took a new approach. And one of the things that we did was we looked at this map, and we just added time tagging. So this is the map before May. And we had some sense-making sessions, and we looked at the map, and we all agreed, oh, there's Christine at the center. It's very much a hub. It hasn't developed into multiple hubs, and it hasn't developed into a rich stage 4 network at all. And so we started to think about what really needs to change. And so that was one of the pieces of the clarifying the vision and making it available, something that you could find. But also I realized we needed to have start to play with more structure within the network. more, more small groups that are doing specific things that are visible to other people so that other people can see what's going on and ask people, is this something I could be part of? And we needed more to generate some kind of more interaction among different members, not just me. So that, because as it's been, I'm the expert, I'm the one with the answers, I'm the one that anybody's going to reach out to, and that I'm the one that everybody does reach out to. And so then I'm the one that everybody knows, and then I'm the one that everybody's comfortable reaching out to again. And it does not generate any kind of self-organizing, and it wears me out and makes me cranky sometimes. So we started working on that, and out of that came, I'm going to come back to this in a minute, but some projects. Let me just, so this is the new, no, I'm going to go back to, and we're still just getting this map figured out. But so here's the connections for the people, which I asked you to update. And now that we have a new multimodal, we added connections for groups. So this is a group that I'm representing. And so I answer questions for that. But we also have these questions. These are questions about your relationship. So everyone, whether you are part of a group or not, you will have these tabs, and you'll have this tab called Group Connections. And this is about your personal relationship to any of these groups that we have on this page right now. And what we did was we went through, well, first of all, there are two kinds of groups here. One are internal teams. So we made some teams who are working on specific things or planning to work on specific things. And so those are internal teams, and those internal teams ideally will end up having a page in that walling tool. So when you click on here, you can, or no, when you click on it in the map, you can go to the walling tool and see more about that project and who's leading it and who's part of it. And so you might, so you can learn more about that. And we also, as understanding how we fit into the broader world. So we have porous boundaries to understand how those work, have external networks. So there's the Now What network, which Ben Roberts has been convening for a long time, and he's very involved in our network, and he also has been doing social system mapping for the Now What network, and there are a number of people who are part of both networks. And then there's the SEEDS network, there's the Human Systems Dynamics network. There are a number of human systems HSD practitioners who are part of our network, and the Liberating Structures network, which is an external network. And there are a number of people who are part of both of those networks. So we wanted to start to look at that. Oh, and so these are in your connections, and then you can click on each tile and say, what's your relationship to this group? Are you really engaged in influential, or a little bit engaged in influential? And then if it's external networks, we're asking you your relationship to the external networks. And then if you're part of an internal team, what's your role? What's your, what are you doing in this specific team? How is that serving your purpose? What's your role, etc. So this is the new piece with the mapping, and this is how it looks. So I just wanted to, and I have to say, would be okay. Those are the internal networks. So, and we have not had everybody update their relationships, and so this is not showing you a whole lot of density of relationships right now, but it is showing you that there's this core group of people who sort of show up a lot, or talk to me a lot, or are part of our teams that are part of this, generating this self-organizing and trying to move towards a more spread out network. And And so one of the things that I was thinking about this, like, so let's say I'm a new member, I'm a new person to this network, and I kind of I've read the sort of the vision and stuff, and I kind of get it. And I'm thinking maybe I'd like to be more actively part of this network. How might I decide that? Well, one thing is I might just go to the groups view and just look at each group. Hang on a second. And say, oh, I'm going to look at the internal groups. So filter out the external groups and then just read each one. I could do that. Another thing I might do is say, okay, yeah, there's 6 groups right now, or 3, excuse me, 3 groups, and read the information about each one. And then in this view, I might see, okay, and who's the lead of that group. And for 2 of them, you'd see it's me. For 1 of them, you'd see it's Ben Roberts. Hopefully, as we move forward, the idea is that there will be more of these groups and there will be different people leading those groups. But you might also say, like, let's see, I have been in a breakout session with Mary, and I kind of liked her, and I feel comfortable with her or familiar with her. I want to see what groups she's in. Like, maybe I'd like to, maybe I might just click on Mary and then filter it down and focus on and say, oh, Mary's on the mapping team. I should ask her about the mapping team and see if that might be something I'd want to get involved with. You could just reach out based on who you know and getting their sort of advice or guidance to that. So again, this is very much, so the last thing I wanted to show you was, so this is before May. And we looked at this map and we went, yeah, that's not really what we want to see here, but it is what it is. And it makes a whole lot of sense given how, how things have developed and been generated so far. And then, so we just started this time tag view and went to May. And so now today it looks like this. And if you look at it, it doesn't look like the structure is changing a whole lot. It looks like I'm still smack in the middle and I'm still, and I'm going to run the metrics here so that you can see. Okay, so here's the size, if we run that. So this tells us who's the most connected people. There's me, and then there's Jim Best, and then there's my husband, Tim, and then there's Sarah Shanahan. This was in May. If I run it since May, we can see that, oops. Some people have moved up and gotten more connected. And I don't know that the difference between how connected I am to how connected Jim has changed, but the thing that is maybe a little hard to see, because I just asked Tim to change the decorations on the connections, but in this view, there's a couple things that I can see changing in this view. One of which is, even though I'm still central so this is the before view. Then if we go to the after view, there's more density around among these people. They are more connected to each other than they were. And so there's, in some views, when Tim was making it, it was great. It was actually looking like I was getting pushed off to the side, and I was like, oh, that's cool. But the other thing that is different from the first view to the second view is that there are more connections from this core group out into a next group. So we're not to the point where we have multiple clusters, but we have at least this core group having connected more with newer people, so that there are more people who are starting to feel invited in, or like they have somebody that they can engage with. And I'm going to stop talking. That was a lot of talking, and it feels very like preliminary, or like these are small things, but one of the things I have to say is having really spent more time with our map in the last 6 months. I mean, I've been making these things for several years, many years now. And this is the only one where I feel like I'm invested personally, and I know I have a lot of personal relationships. Usually I'm doing it as an outside consultant, and doing it as the core person has really challenged how I think about our community of practice and made me see things a lot more deeply. So this is a beginning. I can see big changes in it. I can imagine, though, from the outside, it doesn't look like much. But I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to look at okay, hard time. Oh, here's a thing to note. If we go to before May, so we have the metrics here. So we had 89 elements and we had 278 connections for a density of 0.04 and an average degree of 6.25. So that means that on average, people know 6.25 others, have some kind of acquaintance with 6.25 others in the network. Since May, we have more elements, we have a lot more connections, or a bigger ratio. The density is now 0.05 and the average degree is 12.53. So the things we've done, and the biggest thing we've done is the mapping team has been doing outreach to people to hear what they want from the network, what help they need with the map, etc. So, and I think we are learning what it really takes to generate a network that is spread out, asynchronous, and through using a map. So, as well as through using all the other kinds of convening. I mean, this is not instead of all the other kinds of convening, liberating structures and art of hosting and all the other things that need to happen. This is an adjunct to that and a deepening of that. So I'm stopping sharing and I feel like I've just been rambling a lot. And I would like to hear comments, questions. I'm just going to open it up and see what people are. Brian.
I'm really impressed with it, I gotta say, from Kumu and other systems mapping type of I really like the idea of being able to go between May and see what the changes are, and hopefully that we can continue, like every 2 months or something we get a new one so we can see continue evolution of what's going on. But it also seems to me that everything you're doing here should and could also be applied to networks to completely separate from what we're doing here. So that if we're trying to create a network of all of California, then we should be able to use the lessons we're learning here and do it over there as its own separate thing.
Yeah. I agree. I think just as one of the things that I'm really sort of starting to realize is that the initial fundamental challenge is, how do you get people to go back in and update the map? And I know people have said that to me and I've said, well, keep bugging them. And now I'm like, okay, I realize there's more needed than just sending out. I'm like, it's actually, I've been playing with, do we ask people to we ask for a commitment to update it twice a year, or and just say that's part of being part of our network is we're going to ask you twice a year. Or is there a buddy system where we could hold each other accountable that we could create? Or what social mechanisms and can we add into it so that people, because it takes a couple minutes. It's really not hard. It's just that it's not in people's minds and they think it's harder than it is and they don't see the value. And no one is asking, no one is holding them up, no one is saying, it would be great, you're my buddy and I would like to see you connected to me on the map, something like that. There's a bunch of pieces that aren't there, but once whenever I go in here a lot now and I update it repeatedly, So that's a question that I've been sort of toying with, is what can we do differently? And when we do that, then you guys will all be part of that, because we'll be asking you to do that. And then you'll see, oh, that's what that did. And oh, it worked or it didn't work. And how did I, so you can help give us feedback on how that's working. Jim.
I was just thinking of a update party where there's an invitation. We all get together, we look at the map together, we have chunks of time where we're updating different pieces of it. I don't know, it could be a fun kind of thing with a asynchronous component for people who don't show up, but it's like that period of time where we're doing the update map, the week that we do our update, something, I don't know, that would be fun, because like you say, it doesn't take very much time, but it does take a focus. And it would also be, a time to do sense making together. So
Yeah.
I would help in making a party like that happen. I don't want to lead it, but I would make it. I would be part of that.
Good on you. Good on you. Christine, this is Derek. So I'm having these same issues with my own networks, right? And how I and other people judge their level of connectedness, whether there's any transactions happening between people that are meaningful enough to have transactions. When I look at my network, I don't know how. So I called Jim, and so Jim and I have talked. I called Mary and I've talked. Christine, you and I have. That's the only people that I've listed as a connection on this network, because while I see people. And my screen right now, there's 12 boxes, including me. I'm not connected to anybody. So I'm wondering if there's opportunities, if you want my connectedness to increase, to break us into small groups more often and say, oh, hi, Jeff, what are you working on? And is there anything I can do to support you? Or, because what it seems to me in my work, transactions toward a bigger vision, people who work with me alongside me always lead to deeper, well, not always, but when it works, it leads to deeper connections. When it doesn't, it leads to severed connections, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And my last thought, Christine, is as a former lobbyist at the state and federal level, I was so weary of people calling me their friend that I had no idea I wasn't a very good lobbyist, because I had no idea how loosely tied some Americans were with being able to call me their friend and try and leverage me in some way. That made me very suspicious of loose tied interactions. Yeah.
Jonathan.
Yeah, I had a few thoughts. One, going to the idea of thresholds, like if we're not connected to people on this call, would the fact that we're on this call lead us to connect? If we're in a breakout, is that enough to connect? Managing the expectations around that, I think, is one piece.
Mm-hmm.
And another piece is what's in it for the person who connects.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice for the community, and is that enough? Or can we make a case for, by connecting, you will somehow discover new connections, or people will connect with you and you will like that? Or I think maybe we could clarify that.
I think that's part of, for me personally, that's part of the current exploration. We have been doing more breakouts in more sessions. One of the challenges, and one of the biggest in HSD languages, one of the differences that makes a difference in this context is there's always a population of people who just want an introduction to social system mapping. They've never heard of it. They don't know what it's about, and they just want to know about it. And they're not here to make new friends and to solve, to solve world big problems together. They have a need to get some clear answers. And that's how I've approached the on-ramp session, where there's a map sharing. And the Monday morning sessions are very public facing. And so there's a tension between the needs of people who need to connect more and want more shared learning and support, and the needs of people who are just getting introduced. And we have done a pretty good job of doing the introducing thing, and the job of generating the deeper connectedness is the deeper question, and how to do that without wrecking the introduction to new people and without giving me twice as much work, because now I'm convening for newbies and for experienced people, for peripheral people and for, you know, connected people. And that facilitation thing is not my strong suit. And so that's part of the challenges is I know we need more of that interpersonal stuff, and who's going to support it? And does anybody care about it enough to step up and say, I'm going to help support it? So it's not about, I mean, what it's been is about me figuring out what's the strategy for moving forward to meet the highest level of need. But that has to sort of change. And so that's part of the tension here. And I just want to, Brian, I saw your hand go up, and Jim, I saw your hand go up. But before we go back to either of you, I just want to see if there's anyone who hasn't spoken yet or had a question yet would like to. Mary.
I think one incentive is if this map is energized, it becomes an example for us to use in our work, related work, because it's hard to find examples. I know when I started with network weaving, that reamp was the only example I could go to in terms of talking to people. So I think it has value as an incentive.
Yeah. And so just to be really transparent about my process and how I'm showing up in all of this right at this moment, and in most moments, is the challenges that I experience in generating, you know, in stewarding and supporting, hopefully what becomes a true community of practice around social system mapping, is what I see everywhere. I know lots of network weavers. I mean, this is my core living. And so these are not my challenges. These are our challenges overall. I see these everywhere, and, you know, different formulations of them. And so part of my process is to be not only making a map that can be an example that can inspire all of the mappers, but also being very transparent about the process that I have to go through and the thinking that I have to do in order to be as that core person to try and learn how to shift it. Because I believe that the map is a reflection of what's going on at a very deep level among the core people of the network. And if they're not showing up in the ways that they need to show up, in ways that can catalyze self-organizing, it's not going to self-organize. And so I'm happy to make a lot of mistakes, and I do make a lot of mistakes, and I make them out loud in front of all of you, so that you can learn from my mistakes as well as my successes, and you can be part of the actual learning process to whatever degree. So it's very meta, and I'm just calling that out because I feel like I often come across as kind of dumb. And I kind of am doing that on purpose. I'm not being dumb. I'm not being dumber than I am on purpose, but I am being transparent about my own limitations on purpose, so that we can all learn together and grow. Okay, that was a little thing. So anybody else who hasn't spoken yet want to have questions or comments before we go back to Jim and Brian? No pressure, but I'll just take a moment to breathe deep and get centered again while we see if there's anything that wants to emerge. Okay. So Jim, I think you raised your hand first, and then Brian, is that?
Yeah, I was just a quick hit. I was thinking, I put in the chat, like in a whole group gathering like this, we could just explore the map, see who's there. So I just started doing that. I was able to click on Casey and Jonathan, and see what the connections are, and then like having a choose your own breakout where, you know, I would make an invite to Jonathan and say, hey, I'm really interested in the team coaching aspect of what you're doing. Do you want to spend 5 minutes in the breakout? And it's a little messy, but anyway, the idea of actually using the map real time in this space to impromptu network with each other. It's not impromptu, that's more intentional. I put a link in there for impromptu networking, liberating structures of just being in those small groups and connecting up. But anyway, as I was doing it, it's a little difficult to do it quickly. But maybe there's maybe there are people who have other ways of doing that. But anyway, exploring the interests of people that are in a group right then and there. I'm done.
Let me just say that part of my practice now has to be to say to all of you, if you have ideas like that you would like to experiment with this community, we have a, you know, every Monday morning, about this many people, sometimes more, show up. We are a laboratory for social system mapping. So it would be totally appropriate for you to reach out to me and say, I would like to lead a session in which we do X on, you know, in a deep dive, and or to reach out to me and say, I would like to do a session on X, you know, at a different time. But there is a population of people who do show up, and we could, if you have thoughts about things you would like to do with your own maps, but you'd like to try them out with our community first. Our community is pretty forgiving and also wanting to learn about social system mapping. So it's actually pretty much in alignment. So that is an invitation. So Jim, if you would like to lead such a session, I'd be happy to discuss that with you. And you know, how much I need to be involved in it is going to really depend on how much experience you have in social system mapping and how, you know, how involved you've been with the community. But I mean, I might have to be, you know, sort of help guide it at first, but there are other people like Jim. I would just say, what day do you want to do it? Let's do it. So that's an invitation to all of you. And that's an invitation that you can spread to other people, because I'm not going to implement every idea. That's part of the game here, is for Christine to stop feeling obliged to implement everybody's idea and stop feeling like it's, if she doesn't do it, no one can do it. And to stop feeling like it's a burden, and actually say, oh, that's a gift. Give it, you know, like bring it, whatever. So Brian, we've just got a couple of minutes left.
Yeah, no, I put my thought into the chat because I didn't want to lose it, and I want to contemplate it more. But basically, it's when we're working on projects separately, usually we're thinking about how to accomplish that project and not with our social connections. It's sort of like, you know, trying to have as few people to talk to as we possibly can, and a lot of times, at least I do.
Yeah.
And the thing is that we had more dense connections when we got new problems, there'd be far greater chance of finding a solution to them than if we had fewer connections. At least that's my thought.
Yeah, thanks. So does anybody, oh, so sorry. A couple more minutes. Anybody else have anything they want to ask or share before we say do our formal goodbye thing? Mary, yeah.
In a couple of ways. One was something I read about networks of, in terms of ego networks and eco, of putting yourself on the periphery. So I took the map and I took you and put you on the periphery, which was an interesting view, and did the same with myself. It's just another way of looking at the map.
Well, unfortunately, in Kumu, there's you should be able to, depending on how complex your view is, you should be able to just right click on a person and hide them, and then they just disappear from the map entirely.
Oh, okay.
But Kumu, the way like our views have so many filters and are so complex to be able to do this and that it's broken in most of our maps. And so And even, yeah, or else it's been broken in Kumu for a while. I'm not sure exactly if we're the cause of the bug or if there's a real bug. Tim says there's a real bug, but that was great. And it would be, if you're in a map that you have control over, you could put that node in the filter and filter them out, and then put them back in. That takes a little more technical know-how. But yeah, that's a really, really valuable thing to do, is to take out that central person and see if there's anything left. Sometimes they're just like, there's some networks where that are funded by foundations where I've said, let's take out these 5 staff people. And there's like nothing left. And then, okay, this is not a self-organizing system at all. This is totally being managed and handled by the funders. So is that okay, or isn't it? What do you want to do about that? Anyway, so we're at the top of the hour. So I'm gonna, for those of you who have not done this with us, we have a little ritual, a little simple goodbye ritual where we all unmute and I count down. So we'll all unmute, I'll count down 3, 2, 1, then we'll all give each other our greetings and our blessings for the day. And then if you want to stick around and dig into this more and ask more questions, or whatever you want to do, I'll be around for an extra half an hour. So just don't jump off when everybody else is jumping off, and we'll wait a moment and let everybody leave, and then we'll continue the conversation. So if you're gonna do the goodbye ritual, let's go ahead. And Jennifer, I just noticed you just turned your video on. I just wanted to see if that was just because we're going, or if you had something you wanted to say.
No, sorry, I had to take a phone call, so I had to step away for a minute, but I'm here.
Okay, no, sorry, sorry, I didn't mean to pick on you. I just saw you.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're
Okay.
not the only one that picks on me. Believe me,
Oh,
I get it a lot. Go ahead, all of you, everybody, just pile it on if you need to, because I'm like a good scapegoat. Just like throw it at me.
I can relate to that. Okay. So let's all unmute, and 3, 2, 1. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, everybody.
Blessings.
Have a great Monday.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.